All right, welcome back to another episode. Going into back to week 13 to talk about that game, those games, and advancing to talk about our week 14 predictions. Only a couple weeks left here in the season, steadily approaching the end. We're now starting to get into the point where teams can start clinching playoff spots. Eagles and Vikings both up there in the talks of potentially clinching a playoff spot this week. So, with that, let's get right back into our Week 13 matchups. We decided with the Washington tie that we were gonna deem that as a loss because we make the rules, but we hang on. Oh, did it unplug? Damn, it unplugged on me.
Your light?
Yeah. Might have. Oh, there we go. Alright. So, we deemed Washington to be a loss because we didn't predict the tie. So, we're going to put that as a loss. So, with that, this week, you went 9-6, I went 8-7. Very close, but you still continue to just pull away one game at a time. So
And
you were
that's rather shocking considering the awful luck I've had. I mean, one come playoff time, if we do a bracket, then that's where
we will.
I
Yeah.
know I'm going to do horrible, but I've done good in regular season.
So on the season, you're 86-62. For me, I am 80-68. But starting off with last week's matchups, uh, Thursday night football, Buffalo at New England. This was one that we both kind of forgot was even happening, so we had to
Yeah.
go off our honor system and say who we were gonna have picking before. So, we both picked Buffalo in this game, and Buffalo did handle the Patriots despite being in New England. But like I said, I didn't get to watch the game. I don't think you did. The first time I even looked at the game was when the game was over. So yeah, I
It
was
was about like midnight. I was working on something for school, and I remembered, oh crap, it's Thursday. I think there's a game on tonight.
yeah, it's finals week is not exactly the most fun time for this. But
Yeah,
going
that's
to
why we've been kind of inconsistent this week.
yeah, going to the next game, this was one we picked differently. You picked Pittsburgh and I picked Atlanta. Pittsburgh, a team that you've kind of picked uh, a lot this season. Like if you picked them for a couple upsets this season. Again, they pay off for you. They beat Atlanta 19-16 in a close game.
Yeah, I just feel like this team, I mean, is maybe slightly better than the record indicates because I think they have good offensive weapons. I think they still need to find something with their in the quarterback position, and the offensive line leaves a little bit to be desired. But when the defense is healthy, it is a very good unit. And I think we've seen that sporadically throughout the season. And reason why I picked them over Atlanta, I know Atlanta they're 5-8, but they really do not impress me. Their offense just never really like screamed out anything. I mean, they sometimes have similar numbers to Washington, but they don't have the defense to repay that.
I think Pittsburgh's really starting to catch on now. Kenny Pickett is looking a lot better than he has when he first started, so I do like that. And I think
Yeah.
ultimately that's what it came down to. I don't think Marcus Mariota is a good quarterback. Not that he
And he
ever
got
really was,
benched.
but he's definitely not anymore. Oh yeah, they
Yeah,
they decided now that they're
yeah.
starting Desmond
Desmond
Ridder.
Ryder's
So
going to be the starter.
so yeah, but I think Kenny Pickett's finally starting to come along. So this could be a good sign for the Steelers for the future. Going on to Green Bay at Chicago, and I mean, what can you say aside from Aaron Rodgers is going to Aaron Rodgers? There are three things guaranteed in life: death, taxes, and Aaron Rodgers beating the Bears in Chicago.
Yeah. Didn't I pick Chicago for this
We
game?
both picked Chicago.
Yeah. Um, yeah, Chicago. I've put my faith in Chicago. Like whenever I put my faith in them, they haven't paid off. But whenever I think, oh, it's Chicago, like they had that week run where, like a few week runs where they were scoring like above 30 points multiple times. So I don't know what you get with the
I,
Bears.
I thought it was gonna I thought it was gonna be over early when Justin Fields went off for that, I want to say like 50-yard touchdown. They went up 10-0, and then they just lost their
Yeah.
spark.
He
Uh,
had a pretty good game though, apart from the picks. If you were to take those out, 20 for 25 for 254 is pretty good for him.
yeah, and that's his season high for passing yards. Before that game, he only had one other game that he passed for over 200, and it was like 208. So he
Yeah,
getting his passing side down, I think, is huge for him. Uh, Going to the Jacksonville Detroit game. This one you picked Jacksonville, and I told you like you need to trust in Detroit a little bit more, and Detroit absolutely just killed Jacksonville.
yeah. I've trusted in the Steelers most of the season. You've trusted in the Lions most of the season. Yeah, Jacksonville. I thought they're going to play better because they've had some good games the past few weeks, but just nothing went right this week or this previous week.
And there's a even though like some of the times where and it seems wrong because like the times that I picked Detroit, it's like, oh, you shouldn't have picked Detroit there. And then the other times that I don't pick Detroit, then it's like this was a very reasonable game to pick Detroit in. Like I
Yeah,
definitely could have been right there. So yeah, it was a rough one there, but yeah, Detroit finally pulls through for me on one of these games that I picked them, and they just absolutely smoke the Jaguars. And I think DeAndre Swift is finally fully back. So they now have that full double headed backfield. He doesn't have to worry about the injury anymore. So that's going to be scary for their opponents. And then going to the Jets at the Vikings. This one was a decent game, like everyone expected.
yeah. It was a lot closer than some people thought. Mike White, considering this is his second week playing, played pretty good. He wasn't like his efficiency left a little bit to be desired. And he threw two picks, but other than that, the Jets. It was a pretty close game against what is one of the best teams in the NFC.
Uh, I mean, just looking at now, I didn't see any of that game. I was watching the Eagles game, so I didn't get to see any of that game. But Mike White, like just looking at the stats, he doesn't look like he had a terrible game. He only got sacked
Yeah,
once, which is huge. He only got sacked once, and they threw the ball a lot. That is not something that you want. But for throwing
yeah,
the ball 57 times, he had 31 completions for 369 yards. That's not terrible. I
yeah,
mean,
pretty decent.
yeah,
And I
that's
know the
not a
picks are
terrible stat
bad,
line.
but he's still like early in this offense, if that makes any sense. So I don't think there's too much to worry about with the Jets. I think they could possibly make a run for the playoffs.
Yeah, I think they'll definitely make the playoffs. I think Mike White's playing really well right now. I mean, I wouldn't put anything past him. So,
And maybe it's like a Heineke situation where the team is like, oh, let's rally around this backup and they could possibly sneak in.
uh, next the Commanders and Giants tie. Now, this is one that we're gonna get to a little bit more in depth. We're gonna have a lot to talk about on our actual podcast. Is last week we kind of had finals week, make it a little bit hard for us to record, so we ended up skipping last week. But this is one that we're gonna dive into a little bit deeper this upcoming week. But you guys tie with the Giants.
Yeah, and this is a game I feel like we should have won. It doesn't really feel like a tie. It feels more like a loss. It's a game we should have won. Our defense is not the problem. We limited them to 20 points. We had 4 sacks, which was pretty good. Our run game was working wonders. Brian Robinson, 21 carries for 96 yards, but I think the hindrance ultimately for this team is Scott Turner. The play calling in very key situations was really, really shocking. On third ones, we're running these weird play action passes, but and on third and tens, we were running quarterback draws and halfback draws. I just don't understand the play calling. I think that's the ultimate hindrance of this team because this was a very winnable game. And yeah, for me, I put most of the reason for the loss on Scott Turner because he did call out some nice plays here and there. Terry McLaurin had a great game. Brian Robinson had a great game, but just down the stretch, those bad play calls and those bad decisions really added up for us.
I thought for sure when you guys went up 10-0 early, right? I thought for
Yeah,
sure it was over there. I was I don't even know who I was really rooting for. Actually, no, I was hoping for the odd situation that the the Giants would have won, which would have helped the Eagles win the or clinch a playoff spot. But there was a lot that had to go into it. I think it was Washington had to lose, the Seahawks had to lose, and then I think Tampa had to lose or something like that. It was a lot of there were a lot of moving pieces involved, and I didn't think it was gonna happen, but that was the early game, so I was like, hey, what are the odds it does happen? But overall, yeah, a tie, and honestly, a tie kind of helps you both out, because now you don't
Yeah,
have that. It doesn't count as much against your winning percentage, so that'll help. That'll help come playoff time when you're trying to
it
sneak into a
helps,
wild
but
card.
I would really rather a win, and I think it's a very winnable game. But once we come off the bye, we'll have an opportunity to repay that and to make the playoffs. I believe like what our goal is 2-2. I think, and if we do that, I think we have a very good chance of making it into the playoffs.
Uh, Eagles take on the Titans AJ Brown revenge game, and he for sure got his revenge. He had 8 receptions for 119 yards, I believe. I'm gonna double check the yards, but yeah, 8 for 119 and 2 touchdowns. He had a huge game. This is the first time in 2 weeks that he'd actually been fully healthy. Last week he was sick. The week before that he had the knee. So this is the first week he's coming off fully healthy, and you could see he wasn't happy that he got traded away. And did you see right after the game the GM who traded him away got fired?
Yeah, I saw that. And this
Whether
like
those correspond, that's neither here nor there, but I'm thinking they correspond quite a bit.
yeah, didn't you choose the Titans for this
I
game?
did choose the Titans for this game.
And I mean, that's understandable because I honestly thought it'd be a closer game than it actually was, but it was a complete 180 in terms of offensive game plan from the previous week
well there
against the
was so I
against the Packers.
this is nothing against or I don't know how to word it, but honestly, I think the Eagles just played like just outplayed the Titans. They got out coached too. They did exactly what they need to do and shut down the run. Derrick Henry only ran the ball 11 times. He had 30 yards rushing. He didn't do anything on the ground, and when you take away that their ability to run, you take away their ability to play football essentially. They cannot throw the ball. So Traylon Burks, he had a really good catch. I don't know if you saw the catch, but he he went up in the end zone and caught a ball in between the two safeties, but then took a shot after he caught the ball to the face by Marcus Epps, and Marcus Epps got a personal foul. He's gonna get a fine for that. And yes, it's a good call, but that's one of those plays where it's like it hurts because he wasn't trying to hurt the guy. He wasn't. He was just trying to play the ball and play the game, and it just happened to be in the wrong spot. So it sucks for Marcus Epps that he made that hit and he got taken out. But overall, Eagles outplayed the Titans, outcoached them. They took away their ability to run, which just made it that much easier for the Eagles. And like you said, it was a total flip in the game plan, which is what makes the Eagles so dangerous. Is the week before they ran for over 300 yards. This week they Jalen Hurts almost had 400 yards passing. If Jalen
Yeah.
Hurts went out for one more drive, he would have broken 400 yards. So I mean that's huge that they have that kind of they have that kind of I can't think of the word, but basically
Variety.
yeah, variety. That thank you in their offense, and they could do essentially whatever they want to do. So that's huge. They had two 100 yard receivers with Devontae Smith and AJ Brown. Uh, Other than that, I mean, it was just a good game all around. I want to save some of the stuff for the actual podcast, but it was a really good game. But I did pick the Titans because I was thinking, this is one of those games where it's like you're playing a good team, and I sometimes you're just riding a little too high, and I think it gets to you, and that makes you lose. But I mean, they took care of business. I'm not complaining that they did win. Uh, I'm okay with that. But going to the Denver Ravens game, biggest story here: Lamar Jackson gets hurt. But again, you see Denver not being able to score touchdowns. And I found the stat that I was trying to remember last week. Last week, uh, I was trying to talk about how Russell Wilson had less passing touchdowns, and I couldn't remember what the second part of it was. And it was he has less passing touchdowns than he has bathrooms in his house.
Oh my word.
Yeah, on the season, he has less passing touchdowns than he has bathrooms in his house. I want to say he has 8 passing touchdowns and 12 bathrooms.
I'm pretty sure Carson Wentz has very similar passing touchdown numbers. Still, like,
But this
yeah,
isn't.
he has 10 this season.
This is another week where they struggled to score. Okay, hold on real quick. Carson Wentz also was injured for what 3 or 4 games, and he when he did come back healthy, he hasn't played since he's been back.
Yeah.
Russell Wilson has played every single game this season.
Mm-hmm.
He's
And
averaging half a touchdown a game. He's
yeah, and
there's some excuse for Carson Wentz. There's no excuse for Russell Wilson.
yeah, Russell Wilson this season he has a very similar QBR to Wentz as well. Uh, Wilson on this season has 83.5 quarterback rating. I'm pretty sure Carson Wentz is like 82. It's
Although I don't
they're
think
very similar.
I don't think it's entirely Russell Wilson's fault. I think the
I
coaching
mean,
is a big part of it. I don't entirely blame Russell Wilson, but
Carson Wentz has 84.1 QBR in this season, and he's not. And a lot of people have been saying that Carson Wentz was playing pretty bad this season. So what does that
which
say
I
about
don't
Wilson?
fully agree with either. But Lamar goes out, and Tyler Huntley leads a game-winning drive to put the Ravens over top of the Broncos at
Yeah,
10-9.
yeah, that game was a turd,
game.
and it ultimately, I think, put the final nail in the coffin for my fantasy team because he was my quarterback, and I scored a grand total of like 70 points this week. My highest score was my kicker.
That's rough. Oh, in one of my fantasy leagues, I had Jalen Hurts and the Cleveland defense. The Cleveland defense got me 31 points, and Jalen Hurts got me 35, and I still lost
What?
by
What were
4
your other
points.
players doing?
It's not even it's no. Well, for one, Mike Gesicki got 0 points, so
Yeah,
that
I
killed
had him
me.
in my team as
Which
well. I
and
was so mad.
what made me mad about that is I meant to start or not Mike Gesicki. I picked up Greg Dolchich on the waivers right before the game started, and I meant to start him and forgot about it because I was at work, so I got busy. So I meant to start him and forgot to. And had I started Greg Dolchich, I would have won. Had I started Terry McLaurin over Jeff Wilson, I would have won. I Both of my running backs got hurt. Jeff Wilson and Kenneth Walker, they both got hurt. So they scored a grand total of 4 points between the two of them. And
Yeah,
that ultimately killed me. So I ended
yeah, I
up
made
losing in
some bad
one of my
decisions as
leagues.
well. Tony Pollard got 24 points. He was on my bench. Taysom Hill was on my bench. He had 13 points to Miles Galecki's 0. I mean, it wouldn't have made a difference, but it would have made the game at least closer.
Honestly, in fantasy, I'd rather get crushed than lose by like 5 or less points.
Lucky I've done both this season.
But talking about that Cleveland defense, going to the Cleveland game, Deshaun Watson's return, and he didn't really do anything. I mean, he was
12 for 22 and 131 yards.
yeah, he was pretty quiet. The defense had all the turnovers. The defense went off. Uh, but yeah, the big news of the week of the season was Deshaun Watson's return in week 13 against the Texans, the team he used to play for, and he didn't do anything. Now,
Yeah, if this continues, the game against Washington is going to be very difficult to judge. And talking about their pass offense without looking at the stats, which former Washington wide receiver and or tight end led the Browns in reception yard and passing yards
when like overall,
this game
oh, in this
against the
game
Texans?
for the Texans,
Yeah, he was a Washington tight end, I believe, or wide receiver.
he was
He played for us at some point.
was it the only guy I can think of that was a Washington wide receiver was Terrell Pryor.
He hasn't played in a
Yeah,
while.
I didn't think he's played in a while. Okay, so it was
Oh
for
wait,
the Texans.
no, never mind. He didn't play for Washington. It was Donovan Peoples-Jones, but we had a similar tight end who had a similar name. Forget that.
Oh, and he led them in receiving, is what you were saying.
Yeah, with 44 yards.
Oh, Donovan's Peoples Jones. He just got drafted a couple seasons ago out of Michigan.
Yeah, I'm thinking of there was we had a tight end with a pretty similar name. I'm pretty sure.
Uh, but yeah, they defense stands out in the Cleveland game over Houston. Houston is
I
just
was thinking
bad.
of Ricky Seals Jones.
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah. But Houston is just bad. There's nothing
Yeah,
to sugarcoat that. Going from to Seattle at the Rams. This was one we both had predicted. The Seahawks beat the Rams, and the Rams end up picking up Baker Mayfield on the waivers, which is kind of
yeah,
interesting. So, and he played. We're recording this on Friday, and he played yesterday. So,
and he had one of the greatest drives that we've seen in years.
yeah. So, yeah, he's Baker Mayfield. Maybe he can produce something in L.A. where he has a couple more weapons than whatever he had in Carolina because he didn't have
Maybe
much.
they can get the 11th pick instead of the fifth.
I don't care. I want the Saints to keep on dropping down, which I'll talk about later when we get there. But Miami at San Fran. This one was game of the week in from everyone in the NFL because they thought this was going to be such a good game. Especially after Jimmy G went down, people thought it was the Dolphins game for the taking, and
Yeah, but
Mister
Mr.
Irrelevant
Irrelevant,
comes out and shuts down Miami and wins them the game 33-17. Kind of a
yeah,
blowout too.
yeah, the Dolphins lost to Brock Purdy, who Mr. Relevant is the person who's taking last in the NFL draft, and he was, and the Dolphins somehow lost to good old Brock.
Yeah, so that was just. I think that's a saying that the the Dolphins are human. I didn't get to see much of that game, but from what I've heard is the 49ers took away their ability to use the yards after the catch, and that's a big piece of the Dolphins offense. Obviously, Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill being two of the fastest players in the NFL, you take that away from them, makes it that much harder to produce offense. But yeah, that 49ers defense is really good. Uh, Going on to the Chiefs Bengals game, another one that was widely renowned as a really good game that should be going on this week. Bengals really starting to get their feet under them. They started out 0-2, have gone 7-2 with this win now since the 0-2 start. Beat the Chiefs, and they are now 3-0 against Joe Burrow is 3-0 against Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah,
That
pretty impressive. And what I said earlier in the season about, I'm pretty sure I predicted them to possibly either go back to the Super Bowl or make another deep run. That's starting to look like more of a reality. The Bengals defense just did enough to limit the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. So good on them.
uh, and I mean that detrimental fumble by Travis Kelsey at the end of the game. That
Yeah,
definitely hurt him. Chargers at the Raiders. Bit of a shocker here. NFC West matchup. AFC West matchup, excuse me. Uh, you picked Vegas, and it paid off for you. I picked the Chargers, but the Chargers are really struggling this season. I don't know
yeah.
what's up with
And
them. They have a lot of injuries.
what's crazy to me is that everybody's kind of been on the Raiders this season and think it's a pretty bad season, but the Chargers are only one game better than the Raiders. That's shocking to me.
I think it's because if from my personal opinion, I think it's because the Raiders were so widely renowned to be a decent team. Obviously, the AFC West was supposed to be the best division in football. No questions asked. The Broncos obviously suck. They're terrible. But I think what surprised everyone is the Raiders were just struggling. Like they started out the season, I want to say 2-7. They're now 5-9, I believe. 5-8. They're 5-8 now, and it's like I think it was just surprising, and that's why I think everyone has been so shocked because the Chargers are kind of win loss win loss. They're going back and forth. Vegas just came out and lost like six at the beginning of the season, and maybe one here and there. The Chargers have been more back and forth, so it's a lot harder to notice the Chargers failures than it is for the Raiders, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, I mean, like you said, Chargers are only one game better than the Raiders. Chargers aren't doing too good either, but they do also have a lot of injuries. Now, that's not an excuse, but They haven't
It
had
gives context.
yeah, it gives context. They didn't have their top two receivers for a lot of the season. Keenan Allen has played 4 total games this season, I believe. Mike Williams has missed 3 games, 4 games at least. J.C. Jackson has been out a lot of the season. I think they're missing Joey Bosa right now. They're missing their starting left tackle. They're missing a lot of pieces in with over in Charger land, but so I think that is a big piece. Uh, Colts and Dallas. We both picked Dallas to win this one. And before we talk about the blowout, I think we should talk about the fact that it was a 2019 game going into the fourth quarter. Like, it was a close game up until, the elite quarterback that is Dak Prescott in garbage time came to life.
Yeah, they just opened up a can. It was.
Yeah.
I turned off the game like at some point and like towards the end of the third quarter, and then I checked my phone about an hour later. I'm like, what happened?
Yeah,
I was
exactly.
just so shocked to see that score line after seeing the 20-19.
Matt Ryan fell apart. That's really what happened.
Yeah.
I don't think Dallas looked, and everyone's saying, "Oh, this is the team that the Eagles only beat 17-16." Yes, they only won by 1 point. But if you look at the game the Eagles played, they shouldn't have won at all. They should have lost by a lot more because they played bad, but they held up enough to come back and win. The Cowboys did the exact same thing. It's just they capitalized when Matt Ryan was just falling apart at the end of the game. I mean, that's really the only difference. If that game would have stayed a reasonable game, that would have been a 1-score game easily. But I don't think that you can really say, oh, the Eagles lost to that Colts team that just lost 54-19 by 1 point. Like, yes, they did only beat them by 1, but there's context to games, and that's just the way I see it. And then going to the Saints-Bucks game, now that it's starting to get late into the season and I see how bad the Saints are, I want the Saints to start losing a lot more because the Eagles could have a top 5 pick after a deep playoff run, which would be huge. But the Buccaneers squeeze out arguably one of the best Tom Brady comebacks that I've ever seen in my life. They were down by 2 scores with 3 minutes left in the fourth and ended up winning the game, which was insane. But did you see any of that game?
I saw bits of it.
I was at the gym and I was talking to one of my buddies and I just looked at him and pointed at the screen and he's like, weren't they just down by 13 with 3 minutes left? I go, yeah, they were. And Tom Brady's about to score this touchdown to win them the game.
And he did.
I was pretty excited when he came back. And I said that might be one of the only times that I've been excited about that big of a Tom Brady comeback.
I've been excited about a few, but in hindsight, I'm kind of like about them because there's a few Super Bowls where I've rooted for the Patriots, but in hindsight, where Pete Carroll made the worst coaching decision of all time, I was rooting for the Patriots, and that was a bit of a Brady comeback.
You gotta pass the ball. So
not in that case.
Or you gotta run the ball.
Have you seen that clip of Richard Sherman talking about that? I'm pretty sure it was on Thursday Night Football where he's like, run the ball.
I've never seen that clip. That's something that I wish I would have seen. That sounds funny.
Yeah, you'd be able to look it up, but it's pretty funny to see him talk about that.
All right, Thursday Night Football, Raiders at Rams. We're going off the honor system again, and we're going both with the Rams in this game. And like we said, Baker Mayfield led that 98-yard drive, something that we'll talk about more
less than a minute without a single timeout, and that is, I'm not sure I've seen, there's obviously that Patrick Mahomes drive where he had 13 seconds left and got them in field goal range.
And he did that twice.
Yeah, he did that twice, and then Baker Mayfield just on 2 days, he's been on the team for 2 days to learn the offense, comes in and does amazing. And he did that without the Rams' top 2 wide receivers. So
and Cooper Kupp and
very impressive.
Robinson. All right, so starting off real quick with your game of the week, the Jets at the Bills. So give us your why this is your game of the week. And who you have?
It's a division matchup. It's between two teams who I think are pretty good. The Bills haven't really. There's been some games where they've been kind of questionable in their play, and the Jets the past few weeks have been playing pretty well, and I think they could see the playoff light at the end of their tunnel. So I think that's a reality for them, and they're going to be playing for a lot.
And is so who do you have winning this game?
I probably shouldn't do this, but I have the Jets winning.
Wow, you have the Jets sweeping the
Yes,
Bills. All right, so that is the only reason that I'm picking the Bills is because I don't believe the Jets can sweep the Bills.
because I
Uh,
picked the Jets.
this is a huge playoff implication game, and I do think this is going to
Yes,
be a really good game. But I cannot I cannot see the Jets being able to sweep the Bills with
that's understandable.
as good of a team that the Bills are. Uh, and looking at the rest of the schedule, I don't really see a lot of good games in this week. So we'll get to my game of the week a little bit later. But the Browns at the Bengals, another divisional matchup, AFC North. I think the Bengals are finally starting to come on. The Bengals have a lot of talent. Jamar Chase is back. I think the Bengals are going to be able to handle this game relatively easy.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna go with the Bengals. The only reason I think this could possibly be a little like bit of questionable game is because of Miles Garrett against the Bengals offensive line, which this season has struggled. But when it comes down to it, the Browns offense isn't going to be able to keep up, even despite the possible defensive implications.
I didn't even think of Miles Garrett, but uh, that I still think the Bengals are a better team overall.
I did too.
I don't think we really need to spend much time on this one. Houston at Dallas.
Dallas,
All right,
Battle
next
of Texas.
Minnesota. Oh, I messed that up. Tennessee at Jacksonville is the next one.
Uh, mm,
I think this is
ah,
another one that doesn't really need much preamble. I think Tennessee should be able to handle this. They just got
yeah,
routed by the Eagles. They need to come off hot, and Jacksonville hasn't really been hot this season. So I'm gonna pick Tennessee in this one.
I am too.
Uh, Next is the Eagles at the Giants, which is my game of the week. Because, like I said, there wasn't really that many good games to begin with this week. But this is an NFC matchup, really big playoff implications. This is kind of the equivalent of the Bills Jets game. You got a divisional matchup, one really high up team in the NFL. Obviously, the Eagles regarded as one of the best teams in the NFL, and the Giants, who have kind of come out of nowhere, just like the Jets, and just trying to make sure they keep that playoff light that they see at the end of the tunnel there and that they can actually make it there. I think it's going to be a good game. Giants have a good defense, but ultimately, their injuries are piling up and relatively quick. They might not have Saquon Barkley this week. I'm going with the Eagles.
Yeah, I am too. This was close to being my game of the week, but since Saquon is questionable, which more than likely means he's going to miss the game, that's why I didn't choose as my game of the week, and so I'm going to go with the Eagles.
And I mean, I don't really like to pick my own team as the game of the week because we normally talk about it more on the podcast. But like I
Yeah,
said, I just don't really see that many good games. This next one might be a pretty decent game. The Lions at the Vikings, which before you start, I don't know if it's still the same way, but the Lions were favored in this game by a point and a half.
really.
Yeah, from a couple days ago, the Lions were favored by a point and a half. Oh, excuse me, it's in Detroit, not in Minnesota, but the Lions were favored by uh, Minnesota in this favored over Minnesota in this game.
Yeah, they're favored, but
They still are by two.
I'm still gonna go with the Vikings because it's 1 p.m. So you're gonna see Kirk Cousins go off.
I love that Kurt. The time that they play determines
how
how we
how well we think Cousins will play.
deem a game will go through. Yeah, that's pretty funny. But I you know what? I'm gonna stick with my guys. I'm they've
Oh
been
my gosh.
they haven't occasionally they come through for me, and I mean they're playing hot right now. I do really like the way Detroit's playing. They got both their running backs back. I think Detroit has a pretty good shot at winning this one. I'm gonna pick Detroit in this one. Uh, it's pretty crazy that you're picking the underdogs with the Vikings. But next is the Ravens at the Steelers. Uh,
Um, I'm gonna go with the Steelers because the Ravens aren't gonna have Lamar.
yeah, Ravens don't have Lamar, and with that, I'm also gonna go with Pittsburgh, which is another one I didn't really think that I would be having going my way, but we'll see that. AFC West matchup in the Chiefs at the Broncos. I think there's another one that doesn't need much preamble. I'm going
Man, who am I
KC.
gonna choose on this one, Tristan?
Should probably pick Denver if I had to guess.
Broncos country, let's cry.
Uh, all right. Can Brock Purdy keep up his excellence as they play Tampa this week?
No,
No, you picking Tampa?
I'm picking Tampa.
I'm gonna stick with San Fran, because I don't think it's not like they tried to hide Brock Purdy. They played him and he played well. So
Yeah, they
I'm gonna
played
stick
me
with
pretty
San
well,
Fran.
but I think after last week, the Buccaneers, I think, are starting to feel renewed.
Uh, Carolina at Seattle. I think this one's another easy one.
Seattle.
Yeah, Seattle's gonna should be able to win this one. I'm really interested to see if Kenneth Walker's gonna be back. I believe he is. But moving on to the next one, Miami at the Chargers. I'm gonna take Miami in this one. I don't think the
Yeah,
Chargers are playing like I said, they're really hurt, so that's definitely hurting.
yeah. And
And
they're just way too inconsistent.
the Monday night game, New England at Arizona. This is another one I think might be a decent game. But I think I'm gonna
It
go with New
might.
England in this one.
Yeah, I have like this season. I've really struggled to kind of gauge the Cardinals because it's starting to seem like there's problems coming around with Kyler Murray. So I'm gonna choose the Patriots.
The Patriots are kind of hard to kind of hard to determine what's happening with them too, just
Yeah,
because
yeah.
of
Both of these teams are very difficult to analyze, at least for us.
this is a really weird NFL season. That's for sure. But yeah, I'm gonna pick New England because they are having a low key playoff season, and while they might not be, I don't know if they're in the playoff picture still, but they still have a chance to make it, and I think they're
They're
playing
not
for
too
something.
far outside of it.
Yeah, and they're playing for something, and that just gives them more to go for, unlike Arizona. But with
Yeah.
that, that is gonna conclude our week 14 predictions. So if you guys want to check out our actual podcast, it's Broly Love in the District on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, wherever you guys get your podcasts. We do big announcements on Instagram and TikTok in the middle of the screen here, and you can send us emails at blndc to put on our podcast, blndc@gmail.com. So with that, we are going to end it off this week, and we will see you guys next week.
See you later.
Dude, yeah.